My good friend, the president of the MMA and my college senior, Mr. Mahalingam, the authors of the book, CA Pataviram and CA DC Jain, my old friend, Mr. Rajeshwaran on the panel, former chairman SIRC, Ms. Priya Bansali, managing partner Kumbat & Company, Mr. Ganesh Balakrishnan of Deloitte, and Mr. Anbuthambi of L&T EduTech. Also, Group Captain Vijay Kumar, ED of the MMA. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me to this event and hearing me out for a few minutes. The good news is that I have to be somewhere else in about 20 minutes, so I don't have that much to say. For those of you who see the book, you might find a foreword of mine already in the book, and that pretty much, I think, says what I wanted to say. I must first start by thanking the MC for making me an honorary chartered accountant, which I'm not quite. But I used to joke that I go to at least 2 or 3 lectures a year I give at the ICAI. So maybe I should get honorary membership. But I'm always impressed by the versatility and the range of topics and the range of subjects that chartered accountants and sometimes the jugglery that chartered accountants can do. And so it's only, I'm only wishing I was that talented, but I'm not. I'm also happy to be at the MMA. I think for the second time as a minister. I was here as an MLA a couple of times. I'm always impressed at the ability to get such a large audience on a weekday. And though I won't be around to take questions today, whenever I've been here before, the questions have always been very penetrating and very thoughtful. So I commend the organization. I'm not surprised that you've had 14 years in a row as the #1 association. And every time I've come here, it's always been a pleasant experience. The book itself, I'm actually quite amazed. I mean, if I just ask an honest question, I'll ask this question and I expect an honest answer. How many of you have heard about ChatGPT on January 1st, 2023? Yeah, so basically, here you have a subject that most of us only really heard about within the last few months. And yet, wonderfully, we have this book. And if I didn't know DC Jain better, because he's a fellow Madurai resident, in fact, he's my constituent and my voter, so I won't accuse him. But if not, I would have said, I wonder if the book itself is written with a lot of aid from some AI bot. So it's remarkable, right? You think about a new technology. I mean, at some level, it's not a new technology. Large language models have been around for a long time. And as I often say, I'm old enough that in my professional or adult life, this is probably the 3rd or 4th coming of AI. So it's not like this is the first time. But what is different now, I think, is just the sheer capacity to collate, collect, aggregate data, almost infinite capacity to store it, and on-demand computing power scalable to minute by minute. So you can actually run almost any kind of analysis you need, which in the old days, you couldn't afford to buy the computing power yourself, right? So the notion of cloud computing has really enabled those who need a high amount of computing power for a short period of time to really be able to do things in a cost-effective way that was simply out of reach had you to do the capital investment to get that kind of permanent capacity. And, already it's starting to change our lives. At least in my son's school, not only do students sometimes use such aids, but teachers have a tool to check if you have used these kinds of aids when you submit your assignments already, right? Less than a few months later. And the applications, of course, are endless. Some of them are covered in this book, but I often talk about, in particular, in medicine and in the law. I think the two immediate applications. In medicine, I've seen a few companies that basically will take somebody coughing into a phone and be able to do diagnosis of whether you're affected by TB or some other respiratory diseases. In the law, I think, as good as the databases are, there are engines now that can not only aggregate previous decisions, try and show precedent and stuff like that, but take it to the next level. I had a delegation of about 10 US state Supreme Court judges visit me for tea last Friday, a few days ago, 3-4 days ago. And they were accompanied by the very distinguished jurist, former Chief Justice of India, through UU Lalit. And I was bemoaning the fact that when I served on the GST Council, every time, and I was on the subcommittee on horse racing, gaming, and casinos, how should we tax this? Every meeting we had, some 3 more precedents would come out of some interested party that was basically conflicting all the precedents we had heard before, all only High Court or Supreme Court judgments, right? So this notion that precedent sets law and that everybody reads every case first before they write the next judgment really has not been true. And I was bemoaning the fact that we found it very difficult to do our jobs because we had 5 different interpretations of what was betting, what was gambling, was it skill, was it chance, what percentage, what should be the conveyance of value and things like that. So in that sense, the new engines, I'm told, and I haven't seen them because some of them are proprietary, at least in English, can not only do precedent and all that stuff, but given a judge with a 10 or 15-year track record, they can even tell you which way this judge is likely to rule on this case. Not just any judge, but this judge, right? So I think the amount of processing is infinite. So in some strange way, we have gone from being a processing limited kind of society to a data limited society. And even as great as the data is, I say data limited society in the sense that, theoretically, if you had infinite data, you could get these machines to learn everything there is to know. But we see limitations already. The engines in English are far, far superior to the ones in, let's say, regional languages, right? And now there are companies trying to fill that gap. You may have heard, I read somewhere about companies in Karnataka who are paying people in rural areas to actually read Kannada or Tamil or Telugu into a machine so that they're building databases of regional language audio for the machine to process. So I think, we're data limited in the sense, obviously, the ability for the machine to learn is still not quite as good as what a human can. And so the volume of data required is going to be infinitely higher. But all that tells you is that you're on one progression that is never going to reverse. It's a secular trend. The more data there is, the smarter these learning models will get, the more difficult it will be for you to tell what is human and what is machine. I was quite impressed this morning. Somebody sent me a link where a sitting minister in the government of the UK, who is a conservative by political persuasion, has come out in defense of his main opponent, who's the Labour Party leader, where some fake audio alleging to be his has been circulated. And, in a world and a era where we find increasingly partisan and polarized politics, it's impressive to see a government minister come out for his opposition and telling people you can't believe everything you hear and not all audios are real. So I think that's the kind of danger and sometimes the kind of humanity that these kinds of technologies are making us think about, which we never really used to think about before. I think with with time, the number of applications will just get wider and wider and deeper. Already as the IT minister, many of the major tech companies have come to me, and their primary offerings are, number one, to automate the notion of a call center or what do you call it, dispute resolution, complaint resolution desk, where they believe that if we give them enough of the geos and the case studies and so forth, they can make the machine accept a query and give an answer without the person on the other side even knowing that it's not a human being on the side. Again, it's easier to do in English and it's harder to do in Tamil. We're working hard on trying to bridge that gap. But I think many jobs are going to be affected by this transition, sometimes in bad ways, sometimes in good ways. And I think I have to commend the authors for not just the alacrity and the speed with which they brought out this book, but with the help of the contributors, the range of fields and the range of professions that they have covered. I'll just say one thing, why I'm not personally worried, at least as long as I'm in public life, about being replaced by these machines, right? When I was finance minister, in 2 years, I processed about 7,000 files. In fact, yeah, I'm not sure that's cause for great joy or applause, but anyway, the chief secretary at the time, very distinguished officer through Iran, who used to tell me, "Sir, you can never be away from the country for more than a week or 10 days at a time. The system will come to a halt because all files will go through the finance minister some way or the other." And literally, I've had to change travel plans. Once I came from New York to Chennai for 24 hours, signed files, then went to London, attended this Oxford Union debate I had to, and then flew from there to Melbourne, just because a human being needed to be here to sign these files, right? And we're not computerized. It's a different problem. But I think back to those files, and I think back to how many of them I raised queries on and how many of them ended in substantive change. And it's really hard for me to envision any machine being able to make that kind of, what can I say, automated decision. So at least for now, I think the job of minister is fairly safe, but you never know. Even those jobs may get taken out by a machine sooner or later. But I want to congratulate the authors once again, all the contributors. I'm amazed at the speed, at the breadth. As I say, I'm always respectful of chartered accountants and the many hats and the many skills they have. I think this is a prime example. And I want to commend the MMA for hosting this event. I'm sorry that I'm going to miss the panel discussion with such a distinguished panel, but I'm sure you'll be saving it on YouTube somewhere, so I'll get a chance to look at it then. And I hope many of you will find it useful. I hope the book will be very successful. And if it's successful enough, you'll have to do a sequel, 1 year from now, bringing case studies of all the things that were done with it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.